Hello, explorers. It's Miss Tuhy. Let's jump right in and find out what's happening to Joe as he continues his school day. Here we are. My fox ate my homework. Friday afternoon. I went straight to my room when I got home and laid on the bed. It was so lumpy that my back had hurt all morning after tossing and turning in it all night. It's weird to call it my room and my bed when just yesterday I was living somewhere else. My mom knocked on my door. Is it safe to come in here? This was my great grandma's house, and it had been built in 1930. The floors creaked and the walls smelled like smoke. I wasn't sure any room in this house was safe. It's open, I told her. She sat on the edge of the bed. It's hard leaving everything behind, but I have to do what's best for us. She glanced around the room. Right now, this is it. I sat up and stared at the dirty white wall in front of me. I know she had lost her job and we had nowhere else to go. Great grandma had left this place to my mom in her will. Thank you, Mom. She was a warrior and she'd never give up. She leaned against my shoulder. Now you're talking to me? We both laughed. How was your first day at school, mister? All I could think about was Shane's order to write his paper. It made me feel sick. How could I write 3 paragraphs for him anyway? He had only told me that he and the other guy liked to hunt and fish. I definitely did not want to write it. On the other hand, I definitely did not want to get beat up. It's okay, I told my mom. I get to do some writing like I did for the other school. I thought about telling her the truth, but she already had too many things to worry about. She hugged my shoulders. That's great, Jonah. You're a wonderful writer. She was the only one allowed to call me Jonah. We both jumped when a knock at the front door echoed through the walls. My mom stood up and asked me, who can that be? Maybe it's the pizza delivery man? I said with high hopes. She shook her head and walked out of the room. I had followed her to make sure everything was okay. My mom had spent a lot of summers in this town many years ago, but she didn't know anyone there now, except for my uncle. She opened the door. Hello? Said a big, chubby man in striped suit. He smiled wide and waved a smelly cigar. Miss Johnson. Yes, she replied. Can I help you? Sorry to disturb you on such a beautiful day. He bowed slightly to reveal an almost bald head. My name is Mitch Connors, and I'm from the IRS. He cleared his throat. My condolences for the loss of your grandmother. He sounded sincere. Thank you, she said. She pulled me forward. This is my son, Jonah. Mr. Connors extended his hand to me, and I shook it. I said, please call me Joe. He nodded. The man returned his attention to my mom. Miss Johnson, we need to discuss your late grandmother's property taxes. She never paid them. I had no idea what he was talking about, but my mom didn't have any money. Mr. Connors seemed like a nice man, but I didn't want him to be there anymore. Jonah, my mom said, go out back and make sure the chicken coop is locked before it gets dark. I wish I could have said, I don't know what she's talking about, but I had spent enough time there to know my great grandma kept a bunch of chickens out back. I didn't want to leave my mom stranded there with that man. I was scared he was going to give her some more bad news. She looked at me and winked. Go on now, she said. Everything's going to be okay. I wanted to believe her, but I knew it wasn't true. It was nice to meet you, young man, Mr. Connor said as I walked away. I didn't respond to him. I just shook my head and marched straight to the back of the house. I could still hear him talking before I slammed the door. This house will belong to us on Tuesday unless you can pay, the $14,112 that is due. I already knew we'd be living somewhere else next week. That was a good thing because I wasn't a big fan of the mosquitoes out there. And now I didn't have to worry about Shane or the paper about my best friend, which was another good thing. I didn't have a best friend. I stood in front of a wooden shack outside the back door. It had half a moon carved into it. This wasn't the chicken coop. No, sir. This was the outhouse. My mom used to tell me how houses didn't have indoor plumbing in the old days. The toilets were outside in these outhouses. This house had been upgraded years ago, and there was a toilet inside now, but that magnificent building was still there. I passed the outhouse and headed for the chicken coop. A large area of land around it was fenced so the chickens could come out and eat and get some exercise. The chicken coop reminded me of the treehouse I had in the city, except it was on the ground. It was made of wood and had a door so a person could walk into it. The chickens laid their eggs in there. They were already in the coop. There were only 12 chickens left. Great grandma used to have a lot more, but she always said one disappeared every now and then, like a magic trick. Right there in the back was old Nellie. She was my great grandma's favorite chicken. As my great grandma got older, she swore old Nellie talked to her and laid golden eggs. Now, let's get one thing straight. Old Nellie didn't lay golden eggs. None of the chickens' eggs could be sold, and they were not safe for human consumption. Old Nellie laid rotten eggs. I froze when I stepped out of the coop, half in fear and half in amazement. An animal I had never seen before stared at me. It looked a lot like a dog, but it had to be something else. No. It wasn't very big, the size of a Scottish terrier, like our neighbor in Orlando had. It was bright brown color, almost orange. The end of its tail was white, just like its chest. All four paws were black. There were two things about this animal I could never forget. It had the bluest eyes I had ever seen, like the ocean, and it was smiling at me. I bent down slowly and picked up a stick. It wasn't afraid of the animal. I had always wanted my own dog, and this was my chance. I tossed the stick to the side and shouted, "Fetch!" The animal jumped like it was going to run away. Then it looked over at the stick and back at me. I don't want to sound like a crazy person, but I'm telling you, this creature shook its head at me. "What are you?" I whispered. "You're not a dog. If you were, then you'd have a collar." I took a step toward the animal with my hands out to show I wasn't a threat. Something told me this creature could be my friend. This is nuts. You've got to be some kind of dog. Where's your collar? I stopped a few feet in front of the animal. I hoped it was a dog. It stared at me with its blue eyes and then looked around like it wanted to make sure no one else was watching. It stood up slowly on its hind legs, just like a human. What it did next took my breath away. "I don't know," the animal said like a child. "Where's your collar?" I fell flat on my butt and scooted backwards with my hands. My great grandma had said, "Oh, Nellie, talk to her." Now that dog-like animal was talking to me. Maybe that land made people crazy. "Jonah!" my mom screamed from the back door. Where are you? You better not be in the outhouse." I couldn't move anymore when the animal walked up to me like a human. "I'm a fox," he said. "Don't tell anyone you saw me here." It winked at me and raced toward the fence. I stood up and watched in disbelief as it jumped over the fence and ran out of the yard.